Well, welcome everyone to another great podcast of the SOC Stars. My name is Vlad Babiuk with Stellar Cyber, and today's session is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be unique. We're not only going to be going into the Agentic AI itself, and autonomous SOC. We're going to go a little bit deeper into the evolution of the modern SOC, from the chaos to clarity, going into the SOC capabilities and things like this, how it kind of evolved. And I am actually joined today with one of our lead security engineers, Garrett. Please introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, so I'm Gereth Young, currently the senior sales engineer at Stellar Cyber for Northern EMEA. And my journey into cybersecurity has been probably anything but traditional, you would say. I started with some time in the military, public sector work, some time as a teacher, and then jumped into the cybersecurity sector a few years ago, where I ended up then being the lead for professional services in Europe at a different security vendor before joining Stellar Cyber. And for me, it's been a very nice mix of structure and communication, and probably a very deep-seated passion for solving very complex problems, which is kind of what drives me today, shall we say. So it's really good to be here, and looking forward to having a good conversation with you, Vlad.
Well, thank you so much, Garrett, and looking forward as well. And starting off, I want to know a little bit more about, are SOCs still chasing alerts? Or are we finally kind of entered the age of proactive security with some of the things that you're seeing going on today's, on a modern age, I would say?
So, you know what, that's a really, really good question about this. And we've had years and years of discussion around alert fatigue, like heavily driven workflows around alerts, and traditional SIMs, IDS tooling kind of just produces huge amounts of false positives that are kind of redundant or low priority. And then analysts often find themselves in a very reactive cycle of triage, investigate, escalate, or dismiss, and then repeat, and just rinse and repeat all the time for that. So are we getting there? We have started, should we say, in my opinion. So we've moved from alert chasing to kind of very much intent-driven investigations. And the transition to doing that is very much fueled by a few of the kind of tools that we see around today. Not least is kind of XDR platforms, which are incredibly important in that move forwards. And that's because they allow you to consolidate data from multiple sources using correlation and behavior analytics to reduce the noise. And it very much promotes proactive hunting rather than just reactive alerting. There's the age of AI and machine learning to detect anomalies and anticipate potential threats along the way. But these tools are still in that maturation process. And for SOCs, it's very important that we kind of like continue to push that message as to how automation is freeing us up from alert fatigue, and how bringing things together in a single pane of glass is allowing us to spend less time triaging and much more time neutralizing threats before the damage is done. So for me, we can think of it in three ways. We've got the reactive SOC, which is just pure alert-driven triage focus and high fatigue, high turnover of people that are there. We've got the hybrid ones, which is where we're seeing a lot of people getting to now, which is where we're integrating automations, context, and threat hunting. And then the future, which is the proactive, context-rich, hunting-led SOCs. They are response-orientated, and they're rare in the industry at the moment, but they are growing. So hybrid is where we're at the moment, and proactive is where we're going to get to in the future.
I couldn't agree more with you, Garrett. And, it aligned with some of the things that I'm also looking at. I'm seeing, this kind of pivot from the reactive kind of firefighting to the proactive, like threat hunting and automation detection. I feel like almost like the goal now is this kind of actionable insight. It's not just about the noise reduction. And we're seeing, some of the SOCs that are embracing this kind of model, they're seeing a burnout kind of go down, their mean time to detect, mean time to response, and shrinking dramatically as well. But there is kind of that factor where we're living it right now, and some of it is still very experimental. You're hearing about like the agentic AI stuff that are coming up right now, the agent to agent, all of that is kind of like it's happening right now. Some of it we've been able to deliver a proof of concept and seeing it, but it's still kind of like this ongoing kind of thing. When you look at the traditional SOC, there were built around the reactive world, just like you said it. We had massive alert queues, long dwell times, manual triage. I remember my time. This was the biggest pain that I had, and I'm seeing today with some of the things that you said. With the XDR and like the autonomous SOC capability that are coming out, we're seeing this kind of more proactive approach that is being taken care of. And SOCs are actually indulging this kind of opportunity to see, is it going to be able to solve some of the issues? I didn't want to talk just about AI today, but I feel like it's important to kind of bring it up as well. How is kind of AI reshaping the SOC analyst role? You think it's a threat, or is it a force multiplier in day-to-day kind of operation?
So for me, I think it's very much a force multiplier. I can understand why people view it as a threat, because there's a very human response there as people look at machines and AI and machine learning taking over people's job roles and things like that. We can take this back round to the Industrial Revolution, where like machines came in and essentially reduced the grunt work that's going on. For me, AI is very much along those lines again, where it's taking care of that very repetitive grunt work that analysts do. It's where the level ones sit, spending so much of their time just constantly repeating the same job over and over again, trying to find any false positives, like trying to highlight high fidelity alerts. Well, if we can reduce the alert fatigue and we can look after our people more by having the AI take control of that, then really empower the analysts to focus on strategic analysis and playbook development, I think that has got to be the future, realistically. The number of alerts that people deal with, they're in the thousands of alerts for an average SOC per day. It's very, very hard to stay alert-centric if that's going to be the case. And AI allows you to accelerate the investigation. It automatically enriches alerts with threat intel, geolocation, user behavior anomalies, all of those things. It's got the ability to suggest our next steps. It's got the ability to start visualizing attack paths and reconstruct timelines for us. So it means that our analysts spend far less time pivoting between tools and much more time making actual decisions, which is what the humans are really, really useful for within our SOCs. They're there to be the experts. If we can have an AI agent actually present something to us and go, this looks a lot like phishing, and here's a recommended set of actions, what would you like to do? That's got to be allowed. That's got to see us move forwards with the way our SOCs are built and how useful they are and how effective they are. And so I think we're starting to see a big shift sideways in the way that like analysts work and how they need to now understand like AI outputs, how we can tune them, and how we don't just follow kind of a standard set of rules. So for the force multiplier side of things, yes, it's fantastic. Like our junior analysts become more effective faster. They can ask things in like natural query language. They don't have to learn a specific language for it. We see senior analysts getting more time for really high level threat hunting. And we see organizations able to scale much more quickly with a leaner team. And the AI allows a SOC that is a run-of-the-mill SOC, utilizing AI, is going to start beating large SOCs that are just alert-centric without AI. And for me, the threat is only if we ignore the benefits of AI. I think that's the biggest thing for it. If we think of AI as a threat, it's a threat to people who won't change. Think about it like this in terms of roles for people in the SOC. We can wait for alerts, or we can utilize AI to be proactive threat hunters. We can have siloed investigations, or we can have enriched context-driven investigations moving forwards. We can execute runbooks, or we can spend our time designing playbooks and tuning with the assistance of AI in order to make us more efficient and to make us better at hunting those threats. And I suppose, as a final thought, AI is definitely the force multiplier, but only if we kind of embrace it and integrate it thoughtfully. If we just train our analysts to walk alongside AI, we're then going to be able to outperform those who don't. And that future SOC is much more of an orchestrator.
I couldn't agree with you more, Garrett. And I really like the use cases that you brought up, because this is honestly how I kind of view it as well. I'm seeing this, there is some of the concerns like you mentioned around like AI, maybe being some of the driver that folks are concerned that it might be replacing analysts. But the reality of it is it's evolving the role. You're becoming more, you're getting that extra leverage, that extra opportunity to become better what you do in some way, because it becomes more as well as like educational in some way or another. But AI, it also handles a big amount of data deluge. It's automates some of the enrichments, it prioritizes, it helps with some of the initial responses. This is not some of the things that are new necessarily. There's a lot of vendors that are doing this already, but we're seeing this kind of involvement where the analysts can get that additional insight, some of the summarization, the queries that you mentioned as well. You don't necessarily need to understand a specific query language at this point, and it kind of extends beyond that. And so I think the shift for the analyst becomes more of a kind of higher value roles, like threat hunting, maybe automation design, or more strategic kind of opportunity that kind of goes into that. And obviously, I think AI becomes a force multiplier in some way or another. There is also that kind of threat that I'm also seeing in the industry around how this data is being used when you're utilizing AI. When it comes to the specific role, the information that you're inputting and how this information is being used. But even with that, we're seeing some companies that are coming up around the AI security and things like this, which we can have another conversation another day, of course. But kind of moving towards this conversation into some of the things you mentioned as well around XDR and stuff like that. With the autonomous SOC and everything that you can think of, do you think XDR is dead, or do you think it's kind of evolving into something bigger? Now that we've talked a little bit about the role, now we're talking more about the XDR itself.
So, very short answer is that XDR is very far from dead. Like, for my opinion, it is very much evolving, and it's becoming kind of like the connective tissue, if you like, for the future of cybersecurity operations. And what we're seeing is we're starting to see XDR practices and capabilities being baked into modern security platforms. When we look around at the industry and the way that different companies go, we see companies like Google and Microsoft. They're the big two to kind of pick on in something like this. They seem to come out with a new product or a new rehash of their platforms every couple of weeks. But then when you dig under the hood, what they're actually trying to do is they're trying to very much look at what extended detection and response is able to do. And it started off very much years ago, almost as a bit of a buzzword, with an attempt to unify the detection across traditionally siloed tools like EDR, NDR, SIM. And what XDR has done, which hasn't really been done by any other tooling previously, is they've brought it together under an umbrella that is now AI driven as well. And that kind of pulling together of the ecosystem is really, really useful. XDR is maturing, shall we say. So it's maturing into something much more powerful than what we originally thought it was. It's giving us a platform that is able to give you contextual awareness because of the tooling that it brings in under its umbrella. It's something that is able to give you automation across lots of different telemetry sources. It can talk to the cloud, it can talk to identity, it can talk to endpoint and network, it can give you an NDR built in. And that is very much kind of pulling together things that would normally be disparate tools. And we remove a bit of sprawl along the way. Those principles that are set down, the unified visibility, the automated response, context-rich detection, are driving that evolution. Think of it like this. A security data lake replaces a traditional rigid SIEM. Well, the security data lake is baked into an XDR solution. We have AI threat detection and correlation, which is just empowering SOCs across the globe. We have automated response that is tunable, it is buildable by the SOCs themselves. They don't have to go to a company and ask them to build SOAR playbooks. They have automation built in as standard. And with this, you're able to pull everything together into a nexus point and consolidate your SecOps workflows. It means your teams can be far more effective. They can be slightly leaner. We know that there is a huge kind of shortage of people who are able to do these jobs worldwide. So if we can make the teams that we've got more effective, it bridges a gap. It means that XDR becomes a core enabler of modern SecOps. And especially as kind of complexity grows, alert fatigue grows, pull our way towards those proactive SOCs, then that can only be a good thing for XDR to continue that evolution and drive it. It's not XDR is not something that's a standalone tool. Think of it as almost like the operating system for cybersecurity operations. It's something that builds threat detection, investigation, response, and it allows us to operate cloud scale across hybrid environments. And in my opinion, we are very much heading towards a future where AI, automation, and analytics are so deeply embedded in the detection and response that XDR offers us the only framework that enables that convergence. So it's definitely not dead, and it is continuing to evolve along the way, which is I'm very happy about, obviously, working for an XDR vendor.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And it kind of makes me think of, it's almost like it's morphing into the backbone of the modern kind of SOC architecture. You're not really, and you're seeing this as well with some of the other companies, like you mentioned, like Google, Microsoft. There's obviously other ones as well that they're moving away from this kind of siloed toolkit towards more of this converged kind of platforms, where we're seeing a combination of the XDR with the SIEM, with the UEBA, with the NDR, with the ITOT. All of this is coming together to essentially help the analysts become more proactive in what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, but also simplifying, because one of the issues that we had in the past, it's having too many tools, doing too many different things, not really sure how it works, why it works. But when you bring it all together, you're making it easier for them to see it all in one place and understand exactly how it works and what needs to be done in order to be able to move forward. Because time is in the essence, especially when you're going through an incident. You don't have time to go through 350 tools to try to figure out an incident. If you have one tool that can provide you with all that information right from the bat, I think that's where you really become effective. And kind of moving towards that, what would you say is kind of the number one thing most SOCs still get wrong in 2025 with everything that's going on,
It's hard to say that it's just one thing. I think that just one thing could possibly be an entire podcast by itself at that point. Let me give you a bit of context in terms of things around about that I see SOCs and different security setups get wrong around the world. And then the number one thing for me, I will do right at the very end, shall we say. So in short, one of the big things they get wrong is kind of prioritization. So that means for me, it's not just alerts and what to chase, but it's how you allocate kind of time, talent, and tooling as well. So it's prioritization across kind of entire business. For example, with alerts and allocation of time. So we see SOCs that are starving for context around things. Like alert fatigue is very real, as we've already talked about. And now they get fed by more and more tools along the way, which means heavy detection rates, lots and lots of alerts. So it's difficult then to kind of see the wood for the trees, so to speak. And they spend time sifting through huge amounts of alert volume without really having enough context. Then we can say that there's detection without true operational intelligence along the way. So we see correlations should be given across different domains, where unfortunately that doesn't often happen because tooling is siloed along the way. We then see misplaced focus, or the cost of misplaced focus, if you like, which is where SOCs start to burn times on things like low value investigations, manual processes, poor handoffs, very rigid playbooks, swivel chair syndrome, lots and lots of different things along the way. I guess in a roundabout way, I'm coming to the fact that the thing that I think is possibly the number one thing is sprawl across tools and time investment. So lots and lots of systems that are disconnected, and that just kills our efficiency. So we see the SOC teams underinvested in. They don't have the internal process automation. Playbooks are written, but they're not operationalized. We just kind of drive focus on detection instead of detection to response pipelines. And that's driven by tools that don't talk to each other. For me, bringing in things like an open system, an open XDR, where you can build pure cross-domain visibility, allows you to then really consolidate those tools down. It allows you to bring an umbrella to your tools, bring everything into one place, have a single nexus point, a single pane of glass, if you like, and then really reduce down your dwell time, increase like the impact on reducing your alert fatigue, and then drive your analyst efficiency. And this isn't about counting. It's not about like destroying jobs or anything like that. It's very much around avoiding burnout and avoiding the loss of really good people within the industry to just being chewed up and spat out the other side.
The future SOC doesn't need more tools. It needs, just like you mentioned, it needs smart integration. On top of that, built-in threat intelligence, context-aware automation. You want to make it as easy as possible. This is the reason why we were moving away from some of the legacy SIMs. A lot of it, like we said before, is there's this manual kind of aspect of this perception that everything needs to be like manually done, manual this. You create your own rules, create your own integrations. A lot of that you want to have it out of the box. You want it to be provided. And I think this, where we're kind of going in 2025, this is slightly changing, but we're still seeing companies that have 50 different tools, but we're only using 5. My previous organization that I worked at before a while ago in a financial institution, we had 3 different tools that we're doing the same thing. We have 3 different SIMs, but we're only using one of them because it's the only one that we understood that actually was connected to the whole network and everything. So it was just very interesting. I'm pretty sure it's still the same thing today. Kind of my final question, with budget pressure that is rising, and we've seen it last year especially, where are SOCs getting the most bang for their buck in your perspective?
Okay, so when we look at bang for buck, and a lot of the research papers that I read out there, a lot of the different things that come out from other security vendors, is that when we look at return on investment, the biggest single thing that gives them the most bang for their buck is platform consolidation, automation, and basically smarter telemetry. You don't necessarily have to spend more, but you do need to spend smarter along the way. So when we think about that, what I mean, basically, not necessarily having more tools, but more valuable tool. Tool sprawl used to be a sign of almost of sophistication within companies. And like you look at major enterprises with 100 different security tools, that's fastly becoming a liability because SOCs are finding they can't afford to monitor dozens of silo tools with overlapping functions, like you just said, and then very fragmented data. It just creates holes in your defenses along the way. For me, integration of existing tools, not just replacing things, enabling cross-domain correlation between things, and cutting your licensing and your training down and integration, because that is a massive overhead for people. It's not a magic bullet. There's a choice that's to be made by the decision makers out there, people who are in those kind of CISO, CTO, head of cyber platform, like head of cyber. They have to look at what's available to us. They need to make their entire ecosystem smarter and more efficient. It's about finding something that will give them automation that saves them time, handles repetitive tier 1 tasks, streamlines incident response, and enables junior analysts to do more with guided investigation pathways. And a lot of that comes from Agentic AI along the way, because that is enabling junior analysts. It saves time, it reduces burnout, gives you better response, and better use of very scarce talent. We have to prioritize our high fidelity sources, and we need to cut out low signal feeds that drain budgets, because that just, again, kills our efficiency along the way. So as a final thought, I suppose, like high-end top performance SOCs are very much shifting from being a cost center for a business to a business enabler. They map high-end security investments, and then they use those things to make measurable outcomes. Things like avoidance of downtime, improving incident responses, reducing dwell time, ensuring they're audit and compliance ready. And the only way to do those as well is to bring things into a single platform view, in my opinion. I don't like siloed tools. I don't like things that won't talk to each other. And when we talk to some of our larger security companies that we deal with, they say they've consolidated 10 tools into 3 or 4 and actually found that their mean time to detect has improved and their mean time to response has improved, which makes their customers happy, or it makes their business units happier because they are more efficient and every dollar or every pound they have works harder for them. The smartest SOCs aren't necessarily buying more tools, but they are unlocking value from the tools that they have by bringing them into those kind of open XDR systems that allow them to see it all from a single place.
Efficiency essentially is the name of the game. And like you said, I think going towards more of the platform where everything is kind of interconnected, unify the network, the endpoint, the identity, the cloud dimension, all kind of one pane of glass to save you time, to save you money, to reduce the risk. That's really where you're going to really see a big opportunity. There's also, you can talk about some of the filtering capability as well, so you're making sure that you're only ingesting the data that you actually need. Some of the vendors have that ability right now, or they prioritize on using external companies to be able to perform some of that filtering. But yeah, this sums it up for our third podcast, I think, of SOC Stars. I really, really appreciate you taking the time, Garrett, today, joining me on this kind of journey of the evolution of the modern SOC. It was a pleasure talking to you. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for your time. And looking forward for the next one that's coming up soon. Thank you, Garrett.
Thanks very much, Vlad. Really appreciate it. Cheers.